Part 177. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1766. Clone technique supplies energy. Adjusting the alchemical liquid? No, the energy supplied is always so much, and the liquid flowing into the alchemy device is always so much. The cloned objects will absorb what they need to absorb. The half-step legend of the necromantic system shook his head in denial. Alas, Lord Plague Lord is good at everything, but he advanced too quickly and didn't have time to learn all of some things. For any necromancer who is interested in the direction of cloning, during the long period of advancing from level 15 to level 16, and from level 16 to level 17, he will learn cloning from the teacher and practice it himself. At least he will go through the same process all over again. After walking through it twice, you may still be stumbling on some particularly difficult knowledge points and not fully grasping them. However, it is no longer possible for this kind of basic content to be unclear or unintelligible, and you need to ask someone. Unlike this Lord of the Plague, there are dozens or hundreds of beast eggs made using cloning techniques in the laboratory, and there is one baby made using cloning techniques. He still has basic knowledge that he doesn't know. You still need to ask someone. The necromancer shook his head slightly and looked at Gretel regretfully. Gretel had already smiled, bowed to him, turned around and ran out to find Elder Nox of the natural god religion. Cloning is like this, animals are like this, but what about plants? Plants know how much nutrients and water they need. Elder Nox smiled while stroking his beard. Gretel opened his mouth and swallowed a lot of retorts. What is the semi-permeable membrane? What is the plant root system that relies on osmotic pressure to absorb water? What is the root system that will be burned out if the osmotic pressure is too high? What is the root system that cannot breathe due to too much water and will rot? They don't understand. They don't understand at all. They all rely on instinct. No, not even instinct, they all rely on pure physical reactions. But looking at Elder Nox's smiling eyes, Greet couldn't find the words to argue. Finally, he bowed his head and saluted, turned around and left. I asked the oak staff to go. The oak staff itself is an oak tree. He must know how much food an oak tree needs to eat and how much water it needs to drink. Moreover, I can also ask about the legendary maple tree Servilia, and about another legendary ancient tree brought by my wife, Ms. Felicia. They must know about plants. Also, there are many ancient trees in the forest near the Mage Tower on Dragon Island. I can ask them. Greet visited one by one and asked each one. After asking around, the answers from the oak staff and the two legendary ancient trees were very consistent. With wisdom, of course we can eat as much as we want and drink as much as we want. If there is too much water or too much fertilizer, we can also adjust the root system so that we don't eat or drink. What? Before there was wisdom? I had some feelings at that time, and it's not like everything from the outside will be poured in. In short, we take root, grow trunks, grow leaves, bloom and bear fruit, and we still know what we need. In the surrounding forest, the answers given by the ancient trees and young trees to Gretel were not so clear. However, that firm and vigorous thought still made him realize. Plants are greedy but also restrained. They will try their best to grab water, nutrients, and sunlight, and even strangle different and similar species for this purpose, but they will not grab more than they need. If they grab too much, they will store it, they will evaporate, they will condense, and they will use all methods to return what they have acquired to nature. So, what about cells? What about fertilized eggs? Greet turned around and went to the floor of the change department. There, in a separate suite, nannies and wet nurses, rushed in from Nevis, were looking after the legendary Lundgren children. Gretel stood by the door from a distance, watching the child open his eyes, kick his legs, howl, and sleep peacefully. His hands and feet are flexible and his lung capacity is amazing. He looks like a very healthy baby. This baby also developed slowly from a fertilized egg under the protection of magic. Surrounded by the energy supply magic he developed, it developed into a morula normally, and then moved into the cloning alchemy warehouse to grow up normally. Therefore, the fertilized egg can also absorb the power it needs, or in other words, the most power it can withstand, without the need for the caster to carefully control the power. So, in theory, the fertilized eggs and eggs of dragons can be like this. Can you just throw the spell down and then rely on life itself? Gretel held up his chin. If this is the case, his newly developed spell does not need to be modified, he can just throw it out without thinking. Or, add a spell to attract energy, filter energy, and obtain energy directly from the outside world, or from the mother body. Obtain energy, transform energy, release energy. As for the energy that the fertilized egg cannot absorb, of course, it is directly released into the mother's body, allowing the mother's body to reabsorb it. Achieve a perfect cycle. Bingo! Gretel snapped his fingers, happily, and went to design the experiment. Although no one from the legendary dragon clan and their spouses came out to participate in the experiment, the eggs of the white dragons were still provided regularly. Dragon eggs, and the eggs of female dragons. In addition, Gretel also obtained the sperm of the legendary white dragon and was authorized to use it for experiments. You can do whatever you want. Has the latest batch of dragon eggs arrived? Here we are. Mage Nordmark, he was answered with an energetic shout. Half come from the necromancer and transmutation mage, and half come from the nature priest next door. A transformation magician learns the spell of transforming into a dragon, and the deeper the understanding of the dragon clan, the better. Being able to personally take care of the dragons, taking care of them from dragon eggs to shell breaking and awakening, this opportunity couldn't be better. Even if it's just the weakest white dragon among the dragons, instead of the red dragon, black dragon, gold dragon, or silver dragon, I can't get the dragon eggs myself, so I can only use other people's research resources. It's good to have the dragons to observe, there's nothing to do. Picked. For a nature priest, being able to take care of dragons is equivalent to observing the most powerful creatures in the world up close and gaining a deeper understanding of nature. Not to mention, among natural spells, there is also dragon-shaped transformation. As for the necromancer simply said, we can't make a bone dragon. We can't use dragon skin, dragon flesh, dragon blood, and dragon bones to make undead creatures. It's good to have a living dragon to touch. Gretel only wanted them to work honestly and not make any mistakes. With an order, the latest batch of dragon eggs were divided into 5 groups. One group was buried in ice and snow, hatched normally, and the energy of the dragon eggs and the changes in radiation energy around the eggs were measured. In the second group, throw a power supply spell recently developed by Gretel, which is also buried in the ice and snow. It hatches normally and measures normally. The third group throws energy supplying spells and does not bury them in ice and snow. The fourth group throws energy supplying spells and buries them in the ice and snow, while setting up a powerful magic circle next to them to provide energy for the energy supplying spells. The fifth group has the same conditions as the fourth group, but is not buried in ice and snow. The teacher opened his mouth and the students ran away and broke their legs. A batch of 20 dragon eggs were divided into 5 groups and placed in various devices. All Gretel needs to do is throw spells, throw spells, throw spells, and... Okay. Greet shrugged boredly, another long wait. A white dragon egg has a full incubation period of 420 days. In other words, it will take more than a year to confirm whether the young dragons hatched under the spell are naturally strong enough. Confirm whether these young dragons are enough to awaken on their own strength, instead of requiring him to stay by and perform magical rescues anytime and anywhere. Then, next, there are the eggs of the female white dragon and the sperm of the legendary white dragon. Work harder and work faster. Greed felt that 420 days was quite a long time, extremely long. He even ran to fetch Sains, the time dragon, and asked him to observe these magically blessed dragon eggs and fertilized dragon eggs one by one. How about it? How about it? What about this one? Can it awaken normally? Time dragon Sains walked in the dragon egg nest with a face full of boredom, or rather, a face full of world-weary decadence. The hourglass-shaped pupils seemed to reflect nothing, but also seemed to reflect colorful wanderings. As he walked, he grumbled. What's there to see here, what's there to see in these eggs, so what if they hatch or not, so what if they wake up or not? For these things that cannot cross the river of time, for things that will be known more than a year later, you have to drag me here, I can tell you, I. Okay, okay, Gretel smiled and gave him a golden plate. The gold was not valuable, and the carvings on it were crude, but Time Dragon Sains accepted it happily. This golden plate was a ritual object that appeared on the scene when the sun god Virakaka held a ceremony. To be precise, the ceremony was destroyed by the legendary swordsman and legendary priest of the Lord of Glory, who wanted to kill the demigod in one fell swoop. 1. At that time, the situation was chaotic, and a large number of clergymen were injured and killed. In addition to Sarara, Bernard and Apa all touched some gadgets. This kind of important node related to demigods, in other words, things that are contaminated with a lot of time power are the Time Dragon's favorite things. After getting what he wanted, Time Dragon Sains stopped complaining and started to look carefully one by one. Can wake up. Can wake up. Cannot. Able. Cannot. This will work too. I said, why are you in such a hurry? Are you going to run away now? No way. Even if the research is successful, you still have to stay on Dragon Island for a few more days and help at least 10, 8, or dozens of dragon clans have a baby. To take a step back, Cyrilla is still sleeping and has not yet successfully advanced. Yes. When will Cyrilla end her slumber? Greet's eyes lit up. He has stayed on Dragon Island long enough. If this research ends, he can indeed go to Nevis and roll out the hospital system. The premise is that you go with Cyrilla. Can you show me when she can advance? Thanks to @bookfriend 202206021253222547 for the reward of 10,000 starting coins. Thanks to @Black and White Wind Trace for the 500 starting coins reward. I just said yesterday that I could only write 4,000 words today, but I was blown away. The air conditioner in the cat study room is broken and it's so hot, but I still have to finish 6,000 words. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1767. Book Friends 202206021253222547 million rewards plus more updates. Time Dragon Sains glanced at Gretel speechlessly. Gretel smiled and stared at him without blinking. After watching for a while, he turned to look at the top of the mage tower, then turned back to look at him. After a while, he turned to look at the top of the mage tower again. There, on the top floor of the entire mage tower, the young silver dragon Cyrilla occupies an exclusive floor. The mage tower is made wide, and the top floor is built high, so it doesn't look cramped when used as a dragon's nest. There is a sufficient supply of magic power, and its properties have been specially adjusted and transformed, making it very suitable for the silver dragon to sleep. She has a dragon's nest. She has her own dragon's nest. I have my own territory. Build another one for her on top of the mage tower. The magician who built her the dragon's lair was already level 18 at a young age and was almost destined to become a legend. Now he was still looking at her eagerly, waiting for his answer. Time Dragon Sains looked at Gretel with increasingly unkind eyes. Why could the silver dragon girl have a fiancé, but I, the great Time Dragon Sains, could not find a partner in his long life of more than 1,000 years. Of course, time dragons are creatures that live in the gaps of time. Their lives are long and almost eternal. Every time dragon, as long as they are not crazy about death, is destined to become a legend and have an almost eternal life. Therefore, there is no rush when it comes to finding a spouse, you can take your time. Wandering in the long river of time, looking for a spouse, is also a very risky thing. What if it is found in your immediate female relative? However, this is not the reason why others can show affection in front of him without a spouse. Even a one-sided show of affection makes him feel very uncomfortable. It's so sour. You must immediately know. He stared at Greet and asked quietly, as if two will-o'-the-wisps were burning in his hourglass-shaped pupils. Greet shuddered subconsciously. It's best to know as soon as possible. I mean the best. She has been sleeping for a long time. I miss her very much. Then just wait. Slowly the time dragon raised his head, snorted arrogantly, turned around and left. It's not a big deal, it's not an urgent matter, it's just a little girl sleeping normally and advancing normally. She wouldn't even be in any danger. And I miss her so much. The great time dragon Sains, the other half that I can miss, I don't know where is yet. Greet looked at the back of the time dragon and sighed in annoyance. Alas, the time dragon is not so easy to please. If he is not careful, he will fall out and ignore you. Therefore, if you want to know when Cyrilla will end her slumber, you still have to rely on guessing, observation, and luck. Greet walked back with a slumped head. Walk out of the centralized hatchery of white dragon eggs, walk into the mage tower, and take the elevator all the way to the top of the building. Pushing open the door, a brilliant golden color comes into view in the ice and snow. Gold coins, gold plates, gold bowls, gold cups, and various gold items were scattered all over the place. On the floor paved with gold, a huge silver dragon was coiled up in a ball, with its head buried under the roots of its wings, and its body almost solidified into a statue. Only by standing in the distance and observing for a long time can you see the body of the silver dragon rising slowly, and then slowly flattening out after a long time. A cloud of snow mist flew out from under the wings, causing the nearby gold coins to ding bells to roll out several times. This dragon's nest covered with gold coins and jewelry, was only open to him and undefended to him alone. Come in any time you want. Gretel stood at the door of the dragon's lair, looking at Cyrilla from a distance, with a smile on his face. Around Cyrilla, a powerful energy field condensed, almost forming an ice and snow storm, slowly breathing in and out. In these ice and snow storms, various small whirlwinds can be faintly seen, the shapes of birds and animals can be seen, and crystal clear six-petal snowflakes can be seen. The snowflakes were the shapes he had used to solidify the snowflakes with his magic power when he went out to see the snow with her once, and then carefully traced the shape under a magnifying glass. If she extends her mental power and observes carefully, she can still see various spell models. Some of them are innate to her and can be learned as soon as she reaches the age. Some of them can be learned on her own initiative after arriving in Nevis. To learn. There are also various kinds of magic that she and herself have calculated, researched, and created together. At this moment, these spell configurations were all surrounding her, rising and falling. These spell configurations reminded him of the various spell configurations in the meditation world when he advanced. Very good, very good. There are these magic models rising and falling around Sarah, which shows that she has advanced very smoothly. When she wakes up from her sleep, these spells will be solidified on her body and become her magical ability that can be activated with thought, right? Even if not, using these spells will be much smoother and silkier. Well, the premise is that, first, she must successfully complete the slumber from beginning to end without being disturbed by external forces. This is guaranteed by his mage tower and is absolutely safe. Even the movement of the half-step legend ascending to legend could not disturb her. There should be nothing that could disturb her in this mage tower and this dragon's lair. Second, there must be sufficient energy intake. The energy supply of the dragon nest from the energy pool of the mage tower has been uniform and stable, maintaining it at a very high level. If there is a sudden huge demand, large quantities can be mobilized. As for the food supplements needed to grow taller, Gretel stood on tiptoes and took a closer look, the smile on his lips getting deeper and deeper. A little further away from the spell models, in a place that was not completely covered by the ice and snowstorm, there were piles of magical beasts piled up around Sarah's wings. Blue-horned ox, frozen golden conger eel, saber-toothed tiger. They are all high-level monsters, the lowest is 8 levels, the highest seems to be 15 or 16. Gretel has probably eaten all of them. As long as he eats a small piece of meat, less than half a catty, he can fill his stomach. Even in the silver dragon state, struggling to eat half of a monster requires immediate movement, breathing, and spell casting to consume a huge amount of power. However, if it is Sarala, if she eats and drinks to replenish her growth needs after a long period of sleep, these high-level monsters will be enough for her, right? Gretel has still not forgotten that the last time Sarala fell asleep, in the Dragon Hotel in Nevis, after waking up, the magicians poured down all kinds of food. Those frozen monsters even piled up into a hill. Greet thought for a while, blessed himself with a silencing spell, stood on tiptoes, and began to move in the direction of Sarala. 1 step, 2 steps, 1 slip, 3 steps, 4 steps, another slip, not good. I stepped on a gold coin. The gold coins rubbed against the ice and snow on the ground, making an extremely unpleasant squeaking sound. Fortunately, Greet reacted quickly and threw a large-scale silencing spell to prevent the sound from disturbing Sarala. He thought for a moment, threw himself on the ground, and instantly turned into a black panther and flew forward. Sure enough, the black panther's soft pads fell to the ground silently, and even if he stepped on something strange, he could react in time. Run! Run! Run across the ground, across the ice and snow, to the Golden Mountain, and then, in a circle, try to get as close to Sarala as possible, and then get closer to Sarala. Gretel carefully let go of his mental power, maintaining a distance that was only a hair away from the ice and snowstorm around Sarala, but not in contact with it. Then, he ran in small steps, ran in small steps, ran in small steps, until he reached the distance where he could get as close as possible without disturbing her, returned to his human form, and began to put things down one by one. A woolly rhinoceros. Grab it, hold it up, and place it carefully on the ground. Don't fall. But we can't let it hit with a loud bang and make a sound that wakes up Sarala. Take the woolly rhinoceros out of the space belt, immediately use the feather falling technique, the silence technique, and lower it to the ground. Alas, no good, we are too close to Sarala, the magic movement seems to be a bit loud, and Sarala seems to be waking up. Gretel held his breath and listened. The frost wind howled in the huge dragon's lair. For a long time, the only sounds that could be heard were Sarala's regular breathing and the sound of gold coins jingling and rolling on the ice and snow ground. Greet finally put some snacks in. He took a breath and took out the second woolly rhinoceros. Hold the woolly rhinoceros in the sky with both hands, hold the front legs with one hand and the hind legs with the other, and slowly lower it down. Put it on the ground. Okay, no sound. No sound was made. The third woolly rhinoceros. A blue ice-horned sheep. A jet-black sea snake. All the magical beasts in his body had been given to Sarala when she went to sleep. Now these are part of the rewards for treating the dragon clan during this period, escorting the awakening of the young dragon, and so on. All in all, my father-in-law and mother-in-law were fighting bravely in Sky Dragon City anyway and had no time to inspect him. He turns into a silver dragon, Can he last for half an hour or an hour, or can he only last for an hour while eating and drinking heavily? No one cares. Hey. Since no one cares about it, of course, the best things, the things used to train his body and improve his ability to transform into a dragon, should be left to Cyrilla so that she can have a good meal. Greed carefully poured out all the high-level monsters in his pocket to Cyrilla one by one. I was covered in stinking sweat from exhaustion. I was just raising my legs to leave when I suddenly stopped. Wait. You have to save some for when Cyrilla comes out from her slumber so she can eat something hot. There are hot food to eat, fragrant and well-cooked dishes to eat. Who wants to catch the frozen monster and chew it raw? Not to mention, silver dragons are famous for liking human food, unlike black dragons and green dragons who like to eat food with special flavors. Gretel quietly grabbed a blue ice plate horned sheep, and then grabbed a golden eel, transformed into a black panther, raised his feet high, stepped lightly, and exited the dragon's nest. Returning downstairs, calming down, a thin blade of space flew out of his fingertips. I cut it. I cut it. I do. Let me give Cyrilla a hot pot of braised lamb first. Ah, the extra update is finally finished. I hope that the person who will install the air conditioner will come soon tomorrow and help install the air conditioner in the cat study. It's really hard to live the life of sitting in the study typing without air conditioning. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1768. A whole sheep. Cut in half with one knife. Half and half braised. Half boiled. Gretel rolled up his sleeves and worked hard. While cutting, he put a smile on his lips and hummed a tune softly. He is not good at slaughtering sheep, let alone breaking down slaughtered sheep, but this does not prevent him from working. This is the vertebrae, and here's where the vertebrae meet the ribs, cut open. This is the leg bone, and here's the greater trochanter of the femur. This is... is it difficult to frustrate a doctor when it comes to cutting up mutton? Just follow the texture of the muscles, the gaps between the joints, and the connections of various membranes and ligaments, and use a sharp scalpel to remove it, piece by piece, and cut it cleanly. The hand-caught mutton should be cut into large pieces, palm-sized and fist-thick. Then, throw it into the cauldron, summon crystal ice and snow, pour it into the cauldron, and light the fire directly to boil. The braised lamb should be cut into small, half-inch square pieces. First blanch, then cut into pieces, sauté the onions and ginger until fragrant, stir-fry the mutton until the surface changes color, then add water, soy sauce, rock sugar, etc., bring to a boil over high heat and then simmer over low heat. Gretel. Why can't it be cooked? Why can't it be cooked? Why can't it be cooked? Greed went from smiling at the beginning, to scratching his head an hour later, to fidgeting an hour and a half later. Braised mutton, logically speaking, after boiling over high heat and then lowering the heat, it should be cooked through in 40 minutes. Even if there is a lot of mutton in the pot, it cannot be cooked in 40 minutes. It should be cooked in an hour. He has been stewing for an hour and a half. It doesn't matter if the stew is not tender, don't overcook it. In the end, it will be a dead end. In the end, the love meal that Sarah had when she came out of seclusion, the meal he made with his own hands, was not delicious at all. Where is Bernard? Gretel had to consult an expert. A long time ago, when he was a little mage with less than level 5, he would often roll up his sleeves and cook meat himself. However, later on, his level became higher and higher, and he became busier and busier. Of course, the world of Warcraft he came into contact with became more and more powerful. All the stew work in the team was handed over to Bernard, without any exception. So, why is this pot of mutton, or rather, these 2 pots of mutton, not yet cooked or rotten? I should ask Bernard about this matter. Bernard has been in the mountains near Dragon Island, climbing mountains, swinging sticks, fighting with Idian, and using various methods to train himself, hoping that one day he can set foot in the legend. Hearing the call from his boss, he hurried over, sweating profusely while carrying the big stick. Then, he heard a question that left him speechless for a long time. Can't the mutton be cooked well? Yes, yes, Gretel stared at Bernard with expectant eyes, hoping to hear some good news from him. Bernard, I cooked this for Cyrilla. I hope she can have a hot meal that tastes good after her sleep is over. Is there any way? Is there any way to boil this sheep to pieces? Bernard walked around the pot of braised lamb, then walked around the pot of hand-caught lamb, and checked the lamb horns that Greet had left outside and had not been put into the pot to cook. Then, he let out a long sigh. Boss, what level of monster is this sheep you cooked? Does it look like level 12? Or is it level 14? Greet answered a little guilty, he really didn't remember it. Maybe, when a dragon tribe threw this sheep to him as a reward or something, he didn't tell him. Anyway, for a mature dragon, even an adult dragon, there is no difference between a level 12 magic sheep and a level 14 magic sheep. They both rush down from the sky, catch them, and take them away. But there was no need for him to say any more. Because after Bernard heard the answer 12, 14, he looked at him with extremely helpless eyes. Boss, you're going to burn high-level monsters like this? Just light a fire casually. It won't be cooked like this. What should we do? If it is a spellcaster, the fire element should be penetrated into the flesh. The more even the penetration, the better. Bernard recalled the high-level Warcraft cooking rules he learned from Idian and the tribe elders. Not surprisingly, he saw Gretel shaking his head violently. I won't. What is the element of fire? Isn't flame just the redox reaction between combustibles and oxygen? As for the fire element, he has seen an intelligent fire element before. That thing should be bound by mental power and exist in a plasma state, some kind of intelligent life form. When it comes to infiltrating the fire element into the mutton, Greet's understanding is probably to speed up the movement of the molecules of the mutton and increase the temperature. Then I might as well put the pot into the microwave. Anyway, this big pot uses a clay pot. You won't let it go. Bernard pushed him out with force. I'll come. Give me 2 hours and I'll definitely give you a pot of good mutton, no, 2 pots of good mutton. You can go about your business, you don't have to worry about these things. Hello. Gretel was pushed out step by step. Push out the room, push out the corridor, push the elevator forward. The elevator door opened with a ding sound on the next floor. The magicians who came to wait for his instructions, approval, and guidance gathered around impatiently. Master Nordmark, my newly submitted application for withdrawing experimental materials has arrived at your place. You can withdraw the materials once you approve it. Mage Nordmark, something strange happened when we were modifying the cloning technique. I would like you to come and take a look. The lifespan of the body we created is not quite right. Mage Nordmark, Legend of Langer hopes to obtain some remains of outside creatures. Legend of Philby said that he needs the consent of the Dragon Clan, this matter needs to be mediated by you. Master Nordmark, there is a communication from Nevis, there is a difficult case, please help with consultation. Master Nordmark, can my new paper be published in the journal Life? Mage Nordmark. Gretel, so annoying, so annoying, so annoying. I just stole 2 hours of laziness. I just stewed a pot of meat for Cyrilla, and it hasn't even been cooked yet. Why do so many things come to your door again? I don't want to work, I don't want to work, I don't want to work, I've almost finished my own research, and all that's left is waiting and verification. Instead of being busy with routine work here, I might as well go stew meat for Cyrilla. You all get out of the way. Line up, take your time, I'll ask one by one. Where is Leon? Leon. Help make a record. The crowd dispersed with a roar, and then, in front of him, they lined up in an extremely long row, with their tails swung all the way to the entrance of the stairs, and then bent downwards. Greet breathed a sigh of relief, and was about to return to the study, dealing with them one by one, when a light flashed in front of him, and a magician teleported directly over. Nordmark Mage, emergency. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1769. Chapter 1764 Senior Sister is in trouble. The Zerg invaded the main world. With a flick of the brush, the magicians parted on both sides, like Moses parting the Red Sea, revealing Gretel standing in the middle. Greet's face became solemn and he walked forward quickly. What's up? It's not that magicians are not allowed to teleport to his floor, but cats and dogs can't just teleport here just to save a few steps. Magicians who don't know how to respect the master of the Mage Tower will have died long ago in the long learning process. There is no way they can come to Dragon Island and join this project. All along, no one would teleport to this location just for convenience, except for the teacher, Senior Sister Philby, and the freewheeling Sarah. In other words, if you come here like this, even if you don't shout emergency, something big must have happened. Greet asked while already gesturing to the magicians present. There was a rush of footsteps. The magicians carried their robes and notebooks and retreated along the corridor and the spiral staircase. Some magicians who were close to the elevator leaned against the wall and pressed the elevator button with their backhand. Hearing the pleasant sound of ding, as if he was granted amnesty, he slid in sideways before the elevator door opened more than 2 feet. In less than a minute, the place in front of Greet had been cleared, and half of the people in the entire corridor were gone. Greet gestured to the teleported magician and quickly walked into the study. Come in, what's going on? Senior Sister's accelerator exploded. The teacher's Mage Tower exploded. Sky Dragon City exploded. Or, the nuclear reactor Mage Tower that my senior brother built near Nevis, Sin, it was the Well of Eternity Mage Tower, exploded. That was a big accident, a big disaster. It doesn't necessarily mean that the master's wife is pregnant, right? Mage Nordmark, Philby's legendary Mage Tower, suddenly lost contact. The teleported magician looked anxious. Before the last contact, Philby Legend claimed that she wanted to conduct extremely detailed research on the things brought down from above, which might be dangerous. But just now, a strange signal came from the Mage Tower. What signal? Gretel frowned. The above that Senior Sister Philby refers to is outside the world barrier. The things she brought down were the remains of the invaders, which the Dragon Clan had been strictly prohibited from bringing into the world barrier. According to the Dragon Clan, among these wreckage, there are tiny seeds that still have life qualities. When he was brought into the world barrier, there was an accident, and the legendary dragons tried their best to contain the mess. So, what happened to Senior Sister? There were 2 signals from the Mage Tower. The magician who came to report was a direct disciple of Philby and the person in charge of the communication system of the Mage Tower authorized by Gretel. Because of this, he knew the seriousness of the matter better than anyone else, and his voice was trembling when he spoke. The first signal is the fixed signal of the Mage Tower, which means danger, don't come near. The second signal is very strange, it is yummy. Gretel frowned. Although Senior Sister is not the person with the highest authority in the Mage Tower, her authority is second only to him. How urgent must it be to not even be able to send out a call for help? And that delicious. Damn it, what they are eating isn't Senior Sister, right? What are you still doing? He shouted angrily. Go and ask Mr. Langer. Let him bring all the equipment and props he can bring. Call Idion, ask him to call Servilia, and preferably Felicia. Go and ask, forget it. Yes, I will go and ask for this myself. As he spoke, he had already taken out a disc-shaped communicator and started dialing quickly. However, after dialing once, there was no response, after dialing twice, there was no response, and after dialing 3 times, there was still no sign of the other party being connected. He was so anxious that he stamped his feet. Why did it happen at this time? Where did the teacher go? Was it blocked by the mysterious lock of Sky Dragon City, or did it simply go outside the world barrier? The electromagnetic communication method they currently use can easily be distorted and blocked by the mystery lock. As for outside the world barrier, they are basically unable to contact them at all. Gretel moved his feet and disappeared from the place with a whoosh, but he had already teleported out. The magician who came to deliver the message was about to turn around and leave when, with a whoosh, Gretel appeared again. Command everyone to stay where they are, and no one is allowed to run around. No one below the legendary level is allowed to run around. That place is not something anyone below the legendary level can get involved in casually. After saying that, he disappeared again. The first stop was to go straight to the giant dragon stationed nearby to send messages to the ground and Sky Dragon City. Mr. Thorngraf, please summon Sky Dragon City immediately. Summon my teacher. Just tell me that senior sister is out of contact at the number 1 accelerator and is in danger. Teacher, please go there as soon as possible. Avoid senior wife during the summons. Be sure to avoid senior wife. The golden dragon Thorngraf was stunned for a moment. Under Greet's urgent gaze, he nodded heavily and began to call Sky Dragon City. Gretel stared at him for half a word, then turned around and teleported away, then threw himself in front of Time Dragon Sains. Your Excellency! Your Excellency, please do us a favor. My senior sister Philby may encounter something unexpected. Please step in and accompany us to the mage tower over there. As he spoke, he raised his hand, and with a crash, a lot of messy things fell to the ground. There are huge horns, taken from a slain buffalo on the battlefield against the Plague Maiden. There is an obsidian dagger inlaid with a human face. It was obtained in the Kingdom of Eagle. It was obtained after the battle with the army of the glorious Holy See and the first large-scale sacrifice to the Eagle God and the Snake God. There is an ordinary stone, sealed in a lead box, picked up from the charred earth of the elf secret realm. Time Dragon Sains lowered his gaze slightly and glanced past these debris. The eyes that were so indifferent to the point of being almost dead gradually began to fluctuate, and then gradually became fiery. He roared loudly and spread his wings. Come up. Wait. There are also Idion and the others. Late. The scene in front of him moved and changed. Gretel didn't even have time to jump on the dragon's back, and he felt like he had rushed into a colorful tunnel. What I saw before my eyes seemed blurry, distorted, and regressed. Greet only felt that his body was shaking, and his whole body was about to be torn apart. He quickly released his mental power and let the materialized world of meditation try his best to cover the outside of his body. However, this uncomfortable feeling only lasted for a moment. The next moment, the scene in front of him changed and he had arrived at a beautiful island. On the top of the mountain, the solitary mage tower stood majestically, and around the mage tower, lightning fell like a waterfall. In the lightning, an arrogant wave exploded in all directions. Ha 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 ha. Great place. This great place. We are finally in. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1770. Greet's head banged. Senior sister, the senior sister who took care of him, the senior sister who came all the way to bring people here as soon as she heard that he was going to build a mage tower on Dragon Island, The senior sister who still smiled and did not interfere in the affairs of the Mage Tower after landing in legend, the senior sister who took him as the main. Now, trapped in the Mage Tower, facing great danger. If the lightning hadn't been flying around, covering the entire Mage Tower, letting Gretel know that his senior sister was still alive and well, he might have lost his mind. You can't force your way into the Mage Tower. Legendary mages will have problems. If he, an 18th level magician, entered, it would basically be the result of a sudden attack. However, you can still try it by rushing closer and remotely detonating the Mage Tower. Blow up the Mage Tower and blow all the guys who killed his senior sister and invaded the main world to pieces. Being born as the master of the Mage Tower, he can control everything within a certain range outside the Mage Tower and within the reach of his mental power. Otherwise, wouldn't he have to huddle in the tower all day long and be afraid even if he goes out? Now that the senior sister is still full of energy, Gretel doesn't have to try his best to reach the point where both jade and stone are destroyed. He subconsciously glanced at Time Dragon Sains and cast a look asking for help. Hey, can you help me? Can you help kill these intruders, or at least rescue the senior sister? Or, at the very least, help with another trip to pick up the legend of Langer, Idion, and the legendary Maple Servilia, right? It will take a long time for them to fly by themselves. However, the Time Dragon had already laid down, staring at the lead box that Gretel had just given to him, his eyes shining with a look of obsession. His eyes didn't even move towards Gretel, and wandering lights and shadows appeared around his body. Gretel knew at a glance that the Lord Time Dragon was already immersed in the fun of observing the river of time. Or, he expressed it to himself in this way. Don't bother me, I've done my best by bringing you here. A little more help won't help. However, Time Dragon Sains is already the strongest helper Gretel can find at the moment. Greed had no choice but to bite the bullet and call him again. Your Mightiness. Sir Sains. Your Excellency, please do me one more favor. No response. Not only was there no response, the colorful barrier called Sands of Time around Sains seemed to be getting thicker. It seems that this Time Dragon is determined not to help. Greed sighed and had to think of another way. It is impossible to break through by force. None of the spells he has mastered now have such strong attack power. He turned back to ask for help, but he was afraid that the distant water would not quench his near thirst. Apart from that, the biggest role he can play is. Gretel stared at the Mage Tower and tried hard to use his brain. If he fights outside and tries to kill some intruders, he can indeed take some of the pressure off of his senior sister. However, if he misses and the senior sister is distracted from saving him, it will immediately cause a huge burden to the senior sister. The senior sister is very unfavorable about her own strength, he himself is also very unfavorable about his own strength. The message danger, don't come sent by the Mage Tower before is proof. Is there any better way? How can I better support my senior sister? Got it? Gretel suddenly ran away. While running, he activated all the defenses on his body and took out various things from his body. Liquid nitrogen, potassium permanganate, encapsulated hydrogen test tube. Firewall. Firewall. Wall of ice. Lightning barrier. Without deliberate control, under the strong mental power, all the protective spells have been layered in front of him, forming a shape similar to a bullet, and similar to the shockwave in front of a missile, protecting him as he rushes forward. There seemed to be a faint exclamation in the Mage Tower, and then, the thunder and lightning in the sky softened a little, and naturally separated like water waves, without hitting him directly. At the end of the passage, there is another extremely dazzling ball of lightning that is extremely dangerous just by looking at it. It is crisscrossed and the lightning is bright, firmly blocking the way. Obviously, it was the senior sister who was warning him. Don't come in. Don't come in. Don't come in. I won't come in, Gretel shouted. At the same time, he used his mental strength as much as possible to contact the detection system on the outside of the mage tower. It's so difficult, so difficult. In the midst of the lightning and thunder, every inch of mental power I advance feels like I'm being delayed by lightning. Normally, the detection system of the mage tower would never be so slow. There must be too many intruders that have obscured it. Get even closer. Come closer. Sweat was dripping from Gretel's forehead, and he deeply regretted that he usually exercised his mental strength so carelessly that he couldn't use it at this time. 100 meters, 50 meters, 30 meters, closer, closer, closer. Got it? Connected to the mage tower. Connect to the detection system, pass the identity authentication, and connect to the control system. The transfer of the highest authority in the mage tower, the control can be completed with mental power. At this moment, Gretel couldn't help but shout out and roared. The highest authority in the mage tower is transferred to Philby Legend. From now on, Philby Legend is the person with the first authority in the mage tower. Permissions have been transferred. There was a soft, dull, mechanical voice that sounded softly in Gretel's heart. Greet let out a long sigh of relief, quickly retracted his mental power, retracted the protective magic barrier, and wrapped himself into a big ball. The next moment, he felt like he was kicked hard, and he flew high into the air with the ball, directly flying 100 meters away from the mage tower. At the same time, the lightning surged. The highest authority of the mage tower, in the hands of Gretel, there are not many tricks that can be played, but in the hands of Philby, there are many tricks that can be played. With unreserved support from the entire mage tower, the energy pool roared, the particle accelerator roared, and all the offensive, defensive, and supportive spells in the mage tower roared together. Philby's figure appeared on the top of the mage tower at some unknown time, with her long hair flying, her skirt blooming like a flower, and lightning blazing around her. The blue and white lightning cage formed a grid around her, tightly covering herself inside. Outside the mage tower, another grid was formed, 100 meters high and close to the ground, trying to block all possibilities. The intruder escaped. In the power grid, there are dots, and all kinds of strange things are rushing left and right, but there is still no way to break through the defense. Gretel breathed a sigh of relief, took a few steps back, and stood next to Time Dragon Sains. The Time Dragon turned his head, looked at him with an indifferent look, then turned to look at the mage tower without saying a word. Suddenly, both of them raised their heads at the same time. A brilliant bolt of lightning struck from the sky, reaching to the ground. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1771. Gretel's body softened and he fell to the ground with a plop. That is to say, he has the feather falling technique all year round, and the triggering conditions are wide. Otherwise, if he falls like this, his tailbone will hurt for at least half a day. But Greet no longer had the heart to feel the pain. The teacher is here. The teacher is here. Such powerful lightning coming across the sky could only be the arrival of the Lord of Thunder. When the teacher arrives, the senior sister will be safe. There is no crisis that the teacher cannot handle. Sure enough, the thunder and lightning hovered in the air and divided smoothly to both sides, forming a light gate made of lightning. The Lord of Thunder stepped out into the air, and the lightning gently gathered behind him, turning into a pool of thunder and holding it under him. Greet looked at the teacher with envy. This is such a powerful control. The most violent and unruly lightning is as smooth as hair wrapped around his fingertips. It would be great if he also had such control power. If it really doesn't work, he can control various force fields like a teacher controls lightning, and perform operations on patients, cutting what needs to be cut, cutting what needs to be cut, and healing what needs to be cured. That's also good. Unfortunately, training mental strength and control ability is a time-consuming process and cannot be achieved in a day or two. Greet could only envy him as he watched the teacher walk step by step in the direction of his senior sister. At the same time, he heard a calm and indifferent voice ringing in his ears. What happened before? I received a communication from the Mage Tower before. Greet hurriedly reported everything he knew about the situation and his previous handling, from beginning to end, for fear of missing even a little bit. The Lord of Thunder listened and walked towards the top of the Mage Tower. The thunder and lightning cage built by the senior sister did not seem to hinder his steps at all. Instead, the thunder pool under his feet naturally poured down and merged into the thunder and lightning cage. As for the alien creatures darting left and right among the two layers of lightning, those that should be unable to escape are still unable to escape, and those that should be burned to ashes are still burned to ashes. Gretel even saw that the walls of the lightning cage were getting thicker and thicker. Although the outer diameter has not expanded, the volume that can be accommodated inside is getting smaller and smaller. And in the thunder and lightning cage, there seem to be more and more strange things that are constantly jumping and hitting the cage walls. Gretel studied it and determined that those things were not getting denser and denser, but indeed there were more and more. It seemed that some of the originally invisible things were forced out by the teacher's lightning. What's the situation? Gretel heard the Lord of Thunder ask. His voice was clear and calm, as if he had just been fighting outside, and being called over by a disciple with an urgent message did not make his mood fluctuate in the slightest. Before Greet could figure it out, the senior sister's hurried reply came out. I was studying the things brought from outside the sky. Halfway through the study, one suddenly came to life and attacked me, one by one, one by one. The Mage Tower was almost eaten by them. What about the rest? Everyone else has been taken into my small world. In Greet's perception, the senior sister's voice suddenly became louder. I have no other place to put it, only the small world is the safest. For this reason, I have to pour out all the residue, so a lot of lives are saved. So that's it. The Lord of Thunder nodded slightly. As he spoke, he walked. After saying these words, he had already reached the top of the Mage Tower and stood next to his disciple. The next moment, nearly endless lightning flowed out from under his feet, blending with the lightning in the inner layer of the thunder and lightning cage. Then, the cage pressed down, pressed down, pressed down. In the space of 2 or 3 breaths, the lightning cage had already descended 1 level. The top of the tower where the master and apprentice were standing was completely clean, with not even a spark shining. Philby took a long breath, swayed, and almost sat down. However, she immediately stood up and flew towards Gretel. Halfway through the flight, she suddenly turned around and landed on the other side of the Mage Tower. The small world swelled and shrank, and all the magicians she had taken in had been spit out and were standing safely on the ground. Philby didn't even have time to talk to them. Another lightning cage flew out, covering them all from head to toe, leaving no one missing. These people were released. When they were in the Mage Tower and in her little world, it was unclear whether they were contaminated with anything they shouldn't have or whether any foreign creatures used them to avoid them. When she is done here and has her hands free, she will come over one by one and check them carefully. The lightning flowed close to the ground, and dozens of magicians stood on the lightning, unscathed. Just looking up at Philby, her expression changed from frightened to relieved, from relieved to surprised, and then collectively raised their heads and looked at the Lord of Thunder. Ah, now that the big boss is here, everyone can rest assured. The secret lies above. I hope my experimental records will not be destroyed. I hope my experimental instruments will not be destroyed. I hope the accelerator at the bottom of the Mage Tower will not be destroyed. It is best not to be damaged at all. I hope that after this wave is over, we can return to the Mage Tower and start working immediately. Philby didn't have the luxury of getting to work immediately after the fight. She concentrated her energy and cooperated with the teacher to separate, cut and beat the foreign creatures into a dying state. There were actually several legendary level things mixed in here. Even she had to attack with all her strength to ensure a safe victory. For a while, I really couldn't spare my time to care about anything else. Until the thunder and lightning cage became thicker and thicker, and suddenly the inside and outside closed together, leaving no gaps left inside. Philby shouted subconsciously. "Teacher! What are you shouting for? These guys should have been killed." The Lord of Thunder looked solemn, his fingertips kept flicking, and magic spells flew out one after another and fell into the lightning cage. Philby said anxiously. "But don't burn it all. Teacher! You have to leave some for me to study. I just came up with some clues." "What are you waiting for if you don't burn it all?" In the sky, there was a long chant, which was suppressed by the air. The amethyst dragon Cerberus was the leader, followed by two second-level legendary dragons, Zigzag, rushing towards the mage tower like sharp arrows. "These things. These bad guys. We cannot let them enter this world. They must all be burned. Burned to ashes. Throw them out." "Lord Philby, you said before that these things cannot be brought in. Why did you bring them in? The evacuation was too hasty before. The meteorite base is gone again. I just don't want to waste my research time." Philby felt a little guilty. I wanted to argue a few more words, but in the distance, the huge sound of breaking wind sounded again, mixed with a rapid shouting. "Don't burn it all. Leave some for me. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right?" Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1772. Two legendary third-level ones, one from the dragon race and one from the human race. 4 legends, including 2 legendary second-level dragons and 2 legendary first-level human magicians. In addition, there is a legendary elf warrior and a legendary ancient tree. Confrontation. Gretel only took one look at the lineup, then stepped back, and stepped back again. "Teacher, Dragon Clan, if you have something to discuss, I will not interfere. My small body cannot afford to interfere." Idion jumped down from the ancient tree airship naturally and stood half sideways in front of him. The maple tree also naturally turned, landed, deformed, took root into the ground, and opened a bright red crown above his head. Only Legend Langer, who came by airship, was left alone in mid-air, with no hatch above his head and no deck under his feet. The new legend looked around and could only smile awkwardly before flying towards the Lord of Thunder. "We can't burn it all. At least keep some. This material is very important to my research. The next stage of research depends on it." Snored. Amethyst Dragon Cerberus just glanced over and ignored the new legend. On the other hand, a black dragon behind him had a bad temper. Hearing this, he snorted coldly and swept over with his huge mental power. "What's the fuss about? What's the fuss about? If this thing is released and runs around, it will reproduce quickly and eat up the entire Dragon Island. You don't feel bad because it's not your house you're chewing on, right? They fought bloody battles outside and paid a huge price. So far, almost every one of the legendary dragons has been injured. I don't know when one of our compatriots will be killed. The one who died was not you. Don't you feel bad, right? For this war, to operate and repair the mystery lock of Sky Dragon City, to pay the Lord of Thunder, and to establish the meteor base, all the dragons took out the treasures in their treasure houses. It's not your own money, so you don't feel bad, right?" There was a buzz in front of Legend Langer, and a translucent shield popped up between him and the legend Black Dragon. The mental power swept over, causing a violent tremor on the shield, and the air around 5 or 6 meters away was distorted. Langer Legend himself was unharmed, but he took a step back meaningfully to show respect to the legend dragon. Then, he made a big circle, flew behind the Lord of Thunder, and stood side by side with Philby. This research is really important, leave me a little, at least leave a little. Compared with the safety of this world, a mere legendary research is nothing important. Amethyst Dragon Cerberus waited until the scene quieted down before answering softly. Not only do these foreign things have to be destroyed, but everyone in the Mage Tower must also undergo our strict inspection to make sure they don't have any dangerous items on them before they can be released. To be on the safe side, it's best to completely destroy the Mage Tower. His voice is deep and rich, with a powerful aura that is very soothing. As soon as the voice came into his ears, Gretel couldn't help but want to nod, his jaw started to move. Thinking that something was wrong, he straightened his neck, causing stiffness and pain in his shoulders and neck. The Lord of Thunder glanced over with a vague look. Gretel was covered in cold sweat and stood up straight quickly, holding his breath. The Lord of Thunder finally withdrew his gaze and said leisurely, "During this period, the Dragon Clan has indeed fought very hard. For the safety of the entire world, any of our actions must be based on safety. I do not agree with the uncontrolled research of such alien creatures within the world." The three giant dragons breathed a sigh of relief at the same time, and their huge snorts formed a hurricane that rumbled across the sky. The Lord of Thunder continued, "Magicians should be inspected, but the inspection must be conducted by ourselves, and the Dragon Clan can supervise it. As for the Mage Tower, it must not be destroyed. I don't even agree with eradicating these things completely. It is very difficult to do research and come to a slightly usable conclusion. Destroying the experimental products means that all research must start from scratch." He said one thing, and Philby and Langer beside him nodded, said a few words, and nodded twice. Later, Philby's face was full of gratitude, and Langer nodded. "So well said. Your Majesty, Lord of Thunder, what you said is so good. Fortunately, you are here. Otherwise, we will be bullied to death by these giant dragons." The three giant dragons exchanged a few words in low voices, and their low-pitched dragon roars echoed in the sky, as if they had been encrypted. Gretel did not understand a single word. After a while, Amethyst Dragon Cerberus spoke in a deep voice. "The inspection of the magician can be carried out by yourself, and the Dragon Clan retains the power of supervision. The Magician Tower can also be considered to be retained. Of course, it must be carefully searched by us to ensure that there are no foreign objects left inside. However, all the things brought from outside must be destroyed. After you destroy them yourself, we will destroy them again to ensure that no life forms remain." The Lord of Thunder pondered slightly and did not answer immediately. Gretel stood on the hillside below, silently counting 3 times, and finally waited until senior sister Philby spoke urgently. "That won't work. You really have to leave some for me. I think I'm close to finding the secret of their life and intelligence in them. If I study for a while, I can kill them easily and efficiently. Got it?" "Oh. Oh." The 3 giant dragons were surprised at the same time. Behind the amethyst dragon, the black dragon flapped its wings subconsciously and moved closer, as if it wanted to take a closer look at Philby. He went up and down, back and forth, and looked at Philby 3 times before he said loudly, "Are you sure?" "It's just a possibility at the moment," Philby immediately answered, her voice urgent and fast. "But the possibility is better than nothing, isn't it?" "Well." The 3 giant dragons each pondered for a moment. After a while, Amethyst Dragon Cerberus flapped his wings, slowly fell to the ground, and walked to Time Dragon Sains. 100 meters away, he stopped, lowered his head, and saluted. "Your Majesty the Great Time Dragon Sains, what do you think? Is it possible for what this human legend said to come true?" Time Dragon has been watching the show leisurely with a stay-away attitude. Even if he was asked, he did not answer immediately. Instead, he opened his hazy hourglass-shaped pupils and looked at Philby for a while, and then at the dragons present. Interesting, interesting. What's going on? The river of time has raised fierce waves, it is now forking. The time dragon softly praised. It's so beautiful, it's so beautiful. Amethyst dragon Cerberus. It's over, this guy is back to his old habits. He looked left and right, and suddenly stared at Gretel. Mage Nordmark, what do you think? Gretel? Why is there anything about me here? It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1773. Why did you find me? The legends are talking, why should I speak? Greet looked left and right, but no one gave him any instructions. Looking to the left, the Lord of Thunder stands with his hands behind his back, his face expressionless. Looking to the right, the amethyst dragon Cerberus had turned into a human form at some point, stroking his white beard and looking at him with a smile. Behind Lao Long were two strong men, one of whom had a face that said, "Can this kid do it?" The other one's eyes were running around on the time dragon. Slip around, turn around, and look at him, slip around again, turn around and look at him again. Fine. Probably, I feel that time dragon is so nagging, always saying the river of time makes waves and so on. So far, he is the one who has made the most waves, right? Gretel sighed helplessly. He took a step forward and looked at his senior sister, with a look of hesitation on his face. Well, I don't know what senior sister is researching recently. I really can't make a judgment. Tell me first, the Lord of Thunder finally spoke. Just tell me what you think, it's okay. Oh, that is to say, just talk about it? It's best if you say it right, but if you say it wrong, the worst case scenario is that you'll be rejected. Anyway, teachers and legends still have the final say. Gretel was immediately relieved. He took a long breath and looked at his senior sister seriously. Senior sister, what are the main directions of the research you are doing during this period? Why do you think it is possible to kill these guys quickly and efficiently? Can you tell us about it? Okay, Philby's face also relaxed. She took 2 steps forward and walked among the teacher and the legendary dragons. She lowered her head slightly and saluted. During my time with these outsiders, she pointed to some remaining black particles in the lightning cage. Some signs similar to brain waves were found. To be precise, regular electromagnetic wave signals were found within them. Moreover, outside the world barrier, the existence of electromagnetic signals can also be felt between these outsiders. When talking about her areas of expertise, Philby's face became calmer and calmer, and her tone became more and more confident and high-spirited. From this, I infer that these outsiders rely on electrical signals to generate wisdom, express intentions, and also rely on electrical signals to communicate with each other. As long as I can shield their signals, I can cut off their communication, and if I can penetrate them with electric current, I can quickly kill them. Now I'm looking for the most efficient way. The dragons listened attentively. After Philby finished speaking, the golden dragon behind the amethyst dragon took a step forward and whispered. I don't agree with your statement. Among the dragon clan, the bronze dragon, cloud dragon, and blue dragon are all masters of lightning control. None of them reported that electric shock has extra damage to this kind of enemy. Why do you say that? There is no additional damage because the opponent has the ability to insulate. Philby responded. Their bodies can freely switch between conductivity and insulation. In the conductive state, current can pass through and various signals can be generated. In the insulating state, current cannot pass through. My research during this period of time is to explore the rules of its physical state changes, and I have already gained some insights. What? Jin Long asked in response. Philby said calmly. Under extremely high and low temperatures, the electrical conductivity of their bodies will change. However, Extremely high and low temperatures will also destroy their body structures. I am exploring more efficient methods. Jinlong snorted. Whether they are bronze dragons, cloud dragons, or blue dragons, they are not very good at manipulating fire or ice. Cloud dragons can toss a little bit of cold breath, but it is completely incomparable with the extreme low temperature produced by plastic magicians. He took a step back and stopped talking. From Philby's side, Legend Langer shouted excitedly. The electrical signals in their bodies disappear for a while. If they can be deciphered, they can be rewritten. If they can be rewritten, they can be controlled. These things must be studied, and great efforts must be made to study them. The black dragon stamped the ground impatiently. With a bang, Gretel felt the whole ground shake, and the spire of the mage tower in the distance seemed to shake a bit. How much strength is this? In such a flash, it was at least a magnitude 3 earthquake, right? Greed was slightly speechless. However, looking at the eager eyes of his senior sister, he still took a deep breath and took a step forward. I think it is necessary to further study senior sister's ideas. But researching here is absolutely not possible. Amethyst Dragon's face darkened. A breeze blew towards Gretel's face. Next to Gretel, Idion couldn't help but lean back, then gritted his teeth and stepped forward, half sideways blocking Gretel's body. Even the legendary maple tree Servilia swayed. The branches and leaves rustled, and 2 bright red leaves separated from the branches and fell. Only Gretel was unaware, frowning and thinking. Must they not be here? How about our protection? Is there any way to ensure that they will not break through the defense? No. No. The 2 legendary dragons answered in unison. Only Amethyst Dragon remained silent and looked at Gretel intently. The little guy is pretty good. The 2 legends had to work hard to support the mental shock just now. He, a little guy who had not reached the level of a legend, not even a half step to the level of a legend, actually accepted it calmly, without any feeling at all. For this reason, he was willing to look kind and explain a few more sentences. We have also tried to imprison these guys and study them in Sky Dragon City. However, we have tried all the methods we can use, but we can't eliminate their activity. From time to time, they always rush out and cause damage in Sky Dragon City. If you can't study here, how about changing to another place? Gretel immediately replied. Can that meteorite base be raised again? Or, can a fixed research base be built outside the world barrier for senior sister to conduct research? Then it's impossible for our dragon clan to invest. Amethyst Dragon replied calmly. Gretel was stunned for a moment, then turned to look at his senior sister. So in the final analysis, is it about money? A legendary 3rd-level dragon and 2 legendary 2nd-level dragons came rushing over in a fierce manner, just to say we won't pay. Well, senior sister, if the dragon clan doesn't pay for it, how much will it cost to build a research base outside the world barrier? Do you have any idea? And the legend of Wrangle. Don't just look at it. As a legend in the field of alchemy, you should be the best at building mage towers, floating mage towers, and research bases. Come out and say something. So the dragon clan is unwilling to invest. To his surprise, Philby raised her eyebrows. Then, if we establish our own research base and the results of our research are used to destroy opponents on a large scale, will the dragon clan be willing to pay licensing fees or employment fees? Cat Daddy is dizzy and has been dizzy for 2 days. Today his body temperature is still low and his heart rate is a bit low. He feels cold in his chest, a palm below the middle of the collarbone. Woohoo, the cat is scared. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1774. 3 giant dragons, 3 pairs of eyes of different colors, stared at Philby without blinking. Philby looked at him without showing any signs of weakness, with great momentum. You can think about it. I have already paid a lot of money to set up the research base outside the world barrier. I can't let the assistants in the Mage Tower help me with the research. If I still have to spend money to build the research institute myself. She sneered. If I don't pay the right price for the results of my research, I have no reason to transfer it, right? When fighting outside, I don't have to use it with the highest efficiency, right? If the battle situation is unfavorable, I can retreat at any time, right? Philby the Lord of Thunder interrupted in a deep voice. Philby pursed her lips and took half a step back. The Lord of Thunder said softly. Humans and dragons are on the same front when it comes to fighting against extraterrestrial invaders. Ordinary humans aside, we legends have our due responsibilities. The faces of the 3 dragon clans all looked better. The Lord of Thunder continued. Besides, the will and gifts of the world are the most fair. You will get as much as you pay. The more you pay in research and combat, the more gifts the world will give you. Don't care too much about mere possessions. This time, it was the dragon clan's turn to look ugly. What is the gift of the world? If others don't know it, how can they know it? What is the purpose of the dragon clan to seal the rift in the world for thousands of years? When a foreign enemy invades, why is the whole clan fighting for their lives? It's not just for the preference of the world's will, it's not just for the massive outpouring of gifts from the world. Otherwise, with a race as powerful as the Dragon Clan, how can they maintain their fertility rate, maintain the probability of advancing to legend, and maintain their status in this world? Now, there is a human magician who stands up and upright, saying that he wants to share the gifts of the world they have received, but the method he uses is so upright that the Dragon Clan can't refuse. In the current battle, the Dragon Clan is already under great pressure. The more reinforcements you have at this time, the better. The stronger the reinforcements are, the better. It's so difficult to choose between the current strength of the Dragon Clan and the tilt of the world's will towards the Dragon Clan. In particular, this loss and gain will only appear in the future. We can only estimate it now, and it is a very imprecise estimate. Your Excellency Sains. Amethyst Dragon Cerberus shouted in embarrassment. However, Time Dragon Sains said nothing, his eyes were misty, as if he was looking at the few people in the open space, but he seemed not to be looking at anything at all. Cerberus sighed helplessly. During this period of time, after dealing with Time Dragon Sains, he also roughly understood this person's behavior style. This kind of concentrated observation, in the words of Time Dragon himself, is like the river of time has set off waves and the river of time has hit the rocks even. Sometimes, it is said that the river of time has divided its branches. Translated into human language, no, translated into the language of ordinary dragons, it basically means you have reached the critical point of choice, and your choice is related to your future destiny. As for what the fate will be after the choice, Time Dragon will never give a positive response. For him, watching others make choices is a kind of pleasure. Not interfering with other people's choices and not disturbing the flow of time is a way of self-preservation. All in all, it's probably impossible to get a response from him. However, the attitude of Time Dragon at least shows one thing: this is a key choice node. Making this choice or making that choice will affect the future destiny of the Dragon Clan. In other words, Philby's research is very important, very valuable, and it is very likely to be successful. Then the Dragon Clan will have to invest money. Well, human beings are really difficult to deal with. He took a deep breath, calmed down, and looked at Philby seriously. In any case, this research must be conducted under safe conditions to prevent alien creatures from invading the world and causing irreversible consequences. Do you agree with this? I agree. Currently, the existing defense of the Mage Tower is not enough to deal with this kind of invading creature, do you agree?
Yes, I agree too. Philby pursed her lips into a thin line, her eyes deep. To be honest, she was still frightened about the previous accident. Moreover, if the junior brother hadn't made a decisive decision and called the teacher, if the teacher hadn't been nearby and could rush to the rescue in time, she wouldn't have been able to clean up the mess by herself. It's bad luck, every one of the magicians in her mage tower will be destroyed. It's particularly bad luck, she herself will have to fall into it. Then, we suggest that this research institute should at least not be built on the ground, Serdara said solemnly. As for whether it is built in Sky Dragon City, it is safer to build it directly outside the world barrier. We will have to see your current research progress before doing research. In any case, the Dragon Clan also has plans to build a second meteorite base, and it is still possible to set aside an experimental site for you there. Gretel heaved a sigh of relief, scraped his heels against the ground, and took 2 steps back. Okay, when it comes to the step, there is no contradiction in the next step, it is a matter of money. What is the prospect of Senior Sister's research results and what is the success rate? Where is the Dragon Clan willing to let her place the laboratory and how much investment is she willing to make? How will future research results be distributed? You guys can talk, I don't care. Little Gretel, where are you going? As soon as he took 3 steps back, a wisp of gentle wind caught Gretel's steps. Senior Sister Philby turned her head, half smiling but not smiling. I'm still hanging under your mage tower doing research, are you going to run away? Senior Sister, this research is your own. It's all yours. Take whatever instruments you need and treat it as my first phase funding. Greet couldn't escape, so he had to shout out quickly. You are already a legend. It's time to build your own mage tower. You can also remove the accelerator. But this mage tower is in Sirara's territory, so I can't give it away to you. You can take care of the rest by yourself. Philby. Isn't it? Junior brother, are you going to drive me away now? Beside him, Legend Langer gasped silently. Mage Nordmark, this move is really rich. The core equipment of a mage tower can be given away at any time. But hey, there's me too. And there I am. My project is parallel to Philby's project. You let her go out independently. Do you want me to work for her? There is a saying, working under her is not as comfortable as working under you, at the very least, she is already a legend. How long will it take for me to become independent when working under her? Sad. Dad is much better. My heart rate and body temperature have returned to normal, I don't feel dizzy anymore, and I can even cook. Be happy. I hope Dad can make a full recovery soon. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1775. It's a pity that Gretel has no feeling for the sorrow and prayer of Langer's legend, and he can be called a stone-hearted person. Are you kidding? You are already a legend, but you still stick to my mage tower? It turns out that the senior sister is here too, so that's no problem, the senior sister is holding her down. Now that senior sister has been separated, take this opportunity to separate yourself quickly. It's better to have 2 or even 3 mage towers to independently develop projects, negotiate with the Dragon Clan independently, and gather the Dragon Clan's wool independently. It's better for me to negotiate projects with the Dragon Clan alone. As for the settlement issues between the 2 parties during the separation process, he is a doctor, not a businessman. Talking about business, bargaining, etc., what does it have to do with him? Report the number yourself. Pay cash, or owe money, whatever you want, I'm fine with it. Philby yelled, half jokingly, half plaintively. Seeing that Gretel was unwavering,
She accepted the result of her junior brother's independence from the Mage Tower and went to discuss with the dragons. As for what you owe to your junior brother, don't worry, just calculate it slowly. No matter what, she will not owe anything to her junior brother and will definitely pay it back with interest. Philby made up her mind, and took the legend of Langer, who was short-handed and soft-spoken, and wanted to take over the project from her, so that he could not hold his head up in front of her, and walked away to go to the Dragon Clan to discuss the details. Discuss. 5 days later, Gretel received the latest battle report. After repeated evaluations, the Dragon Clan believes that Philby's legendary research project has certain prospects and a certain hope of success, and may also be helpful to the current situation of the Dragon Clan. For this reason, the Dragon Clan is willing to temporarily set up a special, well-defended area in Sky Dragon City for Philby Legend to study invading creatures. However, when the new meteor base rises, the Dragon Clan is also willing to set up a laboratory on it and invite Philby Legend to stay and conduct research. Of course, in view of the large amount of material resources of the Dragon Clan that have been invested in the meteor base, Dragon City Mystery Lock, and other equipment in the laboratory, Sky Dragon City will no longer support it. Whether Philby brings research equipment from the ground or orders it yourself, please find the materials and pay for them yourself. Of course, if you don't have some high-level magic raw materials, you can also buy them from the Dragon Clan or barter them. No matter what, as long as the discussion is over, it will be fine. Greet didn't even look at the list of instruments that the senior sister wanted to dismantle that came from Talling, and crossed it casually. So, what can the Dragon Clan gain? If the meteor base is raised within a month, the reward for fighting in outer space will be halved. Philby smiled heartily. Also, if the research yields results, it should be transferred to them at a low price. Why do you think of me like this? It must be a low price. How can I earn gifts from the world by selling it at a particularly high price? She is already legendary. In the process of climbing to the second and third levels of legend, no foreign objects are as important as the gifts from the world. Research results are the ladder to climb, and gifts from the world are the most important material foundation. Gretel is also a big spender, and he knows better than anyone else about the path of advancement through making contributions to the world, giving gifts to the world. Hearing what the senior sister said, he nodded vigorously. That's how it should be. That's how it should be. If possible, it's best to teach more dragons, in addition to those who are born to play with electricity, those who can master electric magic and have hope of mastering electric magic, and those who hope to cooperate with others, all church. The more dragons that know this kind of magic, the smoother the war will be fought, the less harm the invaders will cause to the world, and the more gifts this world will give. And the share that senior sister can get will definitely be more. By the way, where is Mr. Langer? Does he also want to go to TNY together? Speaking of this, Philby couldn't help but smile. His eyes were gleaming with excitement, and his smile had a hint of schadenfreude. The Dragon Clan sent a legendary dragon to try his hand at him. He never fought. Therefore, the Dragon Clan did not allow him to study outside the world barrier, but they placed an order with him for some legendary equipment. Greet slapped her on the forehead. It's so tragic, Legend of Langer, this wave is really too tragic. Speaking of which, the fighting skills of the alchemy legend are really all in the equipment. Without equipment, you cannot beat others. Then he agreed. Mage Nordmark, before Philby could answer, there was a knock on the door of Gretel's study. The door popped open, and Legend Langer strode in. Master Nordmark, I will stay in your mage tower for a while longer. You won't not welcome me, right? Don't worry, my disciples and I will complete your research project for you on time. Of course you won't be unwelcome. Gretel stood up and shook hands with him. Your Excellency, I very much welcome you to continue to stay in the mage tower. You, your disciples, and subordinates are all very welcome. That's good. Legend Langer laughed heartily. To be honest, it would be easy for him to walk alone, but the group of disciples and disciples below him have to have a place to stay for a while and cannot be dragged into the wilderness immediately. Besides, there are so many stored materials, instruments, and equipment in the Mage Tower, so they can't be hauled away immediately, can they? Even if you become independent, there must be a buffering transition period. Before that, it is better to stay where you are. The two shook hands, and before Greet could ask, Legend Langer took the initiative and said, "As for the share ratio for accepting tasks, this is as usual. You are the master of the Mage Tower. I use the facilities of the Mage Tower to make it. 20% of the reward will be given to the Mage Tower and settled with materials." Gretel couldn't help but laugh. The share ratio of Langer Legend can be said to be very generous, and he was not bullied at all. In other words, treat him as a magician of equal status, instead of lowering his price just because he is a legend. Then you are welcome to continue to stay in the Mage Tower. I hope you have a pleasant working environment. That must be enjoyable. An alchemy legend has a large number of high-end raw materials at his disposal and can continuously make them into alchemy equipment. For him, this is heaven, right? It must be heaven. Not to mention, when asking an alchemist to make equipment, the custom is to deliver 3 to 5 times the materials. Explode it once, and explode it again, and you can still deliver a piece of equipment. If it explodes once less, all the extra materials will fall into your pocket. How wonderful! And for him, the owner of the Mage Tower, 20% of the high-end materials are just a waste of money. If Legend Langer makes one piece of legendary equipment every month, then he can get the materials for one piece of legendary equipment every month. Long live! Get rich! When Cyrilla wakes up from her slumber, she will have a lot of new treasures. Dad is basically fine. I hope I'll be fine when I wake up tomorrow morning and not feel dizzy, then I can tell it's okay. Put your palms together, pray.